Yes, I'm Batman.
I'm Batman. I'm Batman, Alfred.
I'm Batman.
I am Batman!
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
Greetings, Bat Family. Welcome back to Holy BatCast, brought to you by Real Fans for Real Movies. Visit our website, holybatcast.com. It is your one-stop shop for all things Holy BatCast. But you can also find us all over the internet on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Just search for Holy BatCast and you will find us. And if you love the show, you want to help support the show, you can do that on Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/holybatcast. And as always, huge thank you to our patrons. It really does mean the world to us, and thank you so much for keeping the show running. It's never goes unappreciated. We are part of the Real Fans Podcast Network, so if you are looking for other shows to enjoy, you can check those out at rf4rm.com. As always, I'm your host, Andy DiGenova. You can follow me on Twitter or on Instagram. It's just my name, Andy DiGenova. Now, this episode, we are going to step away from Batman and talk about Superman. We're going to celebrate Superman this time because it has been, give or take, 40 years since Superman 2. And so we want to celebrate Superman 2 for its 40th anniversary. And joining me, I have three members of the extended Bat family. First of all, waking up nice and early out there in Indiana, and we always appreciate it. It is, I should cast everybody like I do with these movies. Oh, crap. He's our Otis. It's Jamie Drewley. Hey, Jamie.
How am I going to be a guy that ain't even in the movie? What the hell's that? Make me Miss Tessmacher.
You get two scenes. Otis is in two scenes in this movie.
Okay.
You could be Rocky, the guy at the diner.
Okay.
All right, well.
You could make me non, because I really don't want to talk about it. So, yeah.
Oh, you definitely are non. You're right. Okay, you've talked me into it. You're non. Although, you definitely talk more than non. Especially when you've had a few.
And it's too early in the morning to be drinking, so I have not.
So yeah, you're our non. Okay, this is great. I love this. So the three Kryptonian criminals, that's the three of us. So down there in Australia, he's our Zod. It's Brendan Lowe. Hey, Zod.
Oh, I was expecting Ursa.
No, I want to be Ursa because Ursa's the coolest.
I thought you were going to cast me as the guy who says that he must be Jewish.
Spoilers.
No.
That's still the best line in the whole movie.
I'd never picked up on it till this watch, but we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Is Terrence Stamp Australian or English?
English, but
He's
for
English.
some reason he gets cast as Australian a lot.
Well, because I thought he might be.
There's no difference, Andy.
Yes, there is.
I'm pretty sure you'll find out on this episode there is.
Yeah, I guess I thought Australian because of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. I think that's what made me think of it. But okay, so, English, Australian, same difference to us Americans. If you have an accent, we assume you're all from the same place. So, you're our Zod, Brendan. And then also joining us, we have a special guest. And the reason he is on this episode, you've heard him on this show before. He came and joined me to talk about the death and return of Superman. But he's back because he writes into the show pretty much every week. And even though it's a Batman show, he still only asks about Superman. Don't think we don't notice. Anyway, he can be our Superman for this episode. It is Stephen Marshall. Hey, Stephen.
Hey, well, thank you. I was expecting to be Zod, to be honest, because I'm English, but you said you weren't sure if he was Australian or English, so maybe that's why it ended up being Brenda.
And can't you tell we sound exactly the same?
Obviously, same difference.
But anyway,
Well, I mean that's not fair because if I go 20 miles south, the accent changes completely here. So that's no. You guys are the same. Don't convince me otherwise.
Well, I figured the three of us, the three regulars, we would be the three Kryptonians, and because you're our guest and because you talk about Superman, no matter what, you should be Superman.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
That's what I thought. So welcome back, Stephen. Your time has come. It's time to talk Superman.
Right. You want me to go first, or?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Oh, right, yeah, sorry, I was like, I was thinking, now don't let me start.
I was just thinking how weird it is that San Diego Comic-Con is happening as we speak, and we're covering a 40-year-old movie.
I mean, because
just
San
as
Diego
common as well.
Comic-Con is not going on.
Well, it's to the best that it can this year.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's sort of trying to go on. Yeah, but I mean, I guess that says everything about the state of the world, is this weekend should be Comic-Con, and we're talking about 40 years of Superman 2, because the world is turned upside down.
Give it a month,
Or maybe it's turned back. Yeah. Bringing it all back.
But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens in a month when we've got DC Fandom. Yeah, because even though Comic-Con is going on and there's some DC stuff there, it's like it is so obvious that they are holding everything back for Fandom.
Oh, hell yeah.
But yeah, Comic-Con is, quote, happening, but again, not a lot of actual DC news to speak of. So, hey, what the hell? Let's go back 40 years and we'll talk about Superman 2. So, let's do that. Let's get the party started. We are going to go back to 1980-ish. I'm so bothered by this, guys. I'm so bothered by the release dates. I'm so mad because all y'all people who email this show, if I say a name wrong to correct me, not a single one of you motherfuckers emailed me and said, actually, it was released in 1981 in America. Not a single one of you fucking know-it-alls that have to correct me for everything that we've ever gotten wrong. None of you said about this being 40th, but not really. Not a single one of you. Who are you people? Even Stephen Marshall, who sleeps with Superman action figures in Superman pajamas, emailed us about doing this episode. Didn't say a word about it being released in 1981.
Apparently, I'm the only one old enough to remember seeing it in the theater anyway, so.
That's true. I wasn't even born yet, so...
No, I wasn't born either.
I was born, but not really aware of my surroundings yet.
You didn't go see it at 3, Andy?
I did not. Anyway, let's talk about Superman 2. So Superman 2 celebrates a 40-ish anniversary this year.
40.
I'm still laughing because you have to go and edit all that stuff out that you just said. But anyway.
I'm so mad. We got numerous emails being like, hey, you should do something for Superman 2 for 40 years. And I looked it up, it's like 1980. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds right, 1980. Yeah, sure. And I knew it was a summer movie. I knew that. So I was like, oh, okay, summer of 1980, 40 years. This is summer of 2020. Great, let's do it. And completely skipped my mind that it was released the summer of 81. It was released overseas in Europe in Christmas of 1980. So we're not even doing it at the right time of year.
That's crazy that it took that long to get to the States, though.
Yeah.
Just shelf this episode.
That's crazy.
Shelf this episode and release it at 12 a.m. on January 1st. That way you just hit that divide perfectly.
Maybe I will. That's why I was like, don't talk about things that might happen in the next 24 hours because, like, I might just want to sit on this episode for a few months until at least it comes out, like, during its initial release in the winter.
Wasn't it delayed? It's currently winter here, so does that count?
No, it doesn't.
Wasn't it delayed because of other things coming out in America? I think that's why they held off, didn't they?
I don't know. All I know is we are now recording an episode for its 39.5-year anniversary.
Well, for me, it's 40, so I'm in UK, so...
Well, by the year, but if we're actually going by the months, even we're 6 months too early, or 5 months too early. 5 months too early for you. Okay, sorry, I got that out. I got it out. I was so annoyed this morning when I was like doing my little research, doing my reading, and I was like, wait, what the hell? How did I forget this? And how did nobody say anything? But But whatever, we already had it planned, so we're doing it. And will I release this week? Maybe. Will I sit on it for months? Maybe. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I can't make any promises. Anyway, let's talk about Superman 2 for real. As I said, it was released in Europe and overseas in December of 1980. Australia actually got it first, December 4th of 1980.
That's crazy. That never happens. Except for a Marvel movie, but even then it's usually only 48 hours.
Yeah. And then it was released in like France and Germany a couple weeks later, and it didn't hit the UK till April 9th of 1981.
All right, I thought we got it in quick. Right, I'm with you then, Andy. Screw it.
Yeah. And it didn't come to the United States till June 19th of 1981. What?
I'm leading the charge here.
What a mess. What a freaking mess. Salkins, didn't you do enough damage as it was? You got to do this. You got to screw up my whole show with your weird-ass release dates that make no sense. Okay. What are we talking about? So, it's directed by Richard Lester, kind of, sort of, a little bit.
It's funny that you say that because as I was sitting there rewatching it the other day, my wife was next to me, and the last thing that showed up that said directed by Richard Lester, I said kind of.
Kind of. Yeah. Sort of.
So it's kind of 14. It's kind of got a director.
Oh, man. Like, you know, mostly directed by Richard Donner, but his name's not on it. Kind of directed by Richard Lester. It is amazing reading up on this movie how prescient it was to what was going to happen however many years later with Justice League.
Yeah.
Produced by Pierre Spangler, the still story by Mario Puzo, because this was all conceived during the production of Superman the movie. Music by Ken Thorne, essentially remixing everything John Williams did in the first film. And then starring, of course, you know, Christopher Reeve as Superman, Margot Kidder as Lois Lane, Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor, Ned Beatty as Otis for 2 scenes, Terrence Stamp as the wonderful General Zod, Sarah Douglas as Ursa, Jack O'Halloran as Non. Who else?
You know, for like 30-ish years of watching this movie, I thought Non was Richard Kiel.
Oh, was that a Bond guy, right? Was he Jaws? Jaws
Yeah.
and Bond? I could totally see it.
Oh,
He was also Happy Gilmore's boss.
Well,
He's
that's
getting a nail in the head.
that is far more
It was
important.
It was also in. Are you about Jack O'Halloran? Sorry, or the other guy?
No, Richard Kiel, who Jamie thought it was, but it's not.
He was in Superboy as well. In a horrible episode, but we'll leave it there.
All right. Anyway, let's first share our memories of the film whenever we got introduced to it. So, Steven, as our guest, why don't you share first? What are your memories of Superman 2?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't born when it came out, like I said, so I didn't get to see it at cinema, but it used to always be at Christmas. They always used to show all the Superman movies, so I first saw it at Christmas time. And I remember I always used to miss the first half of Superman 2, like every time it was on for a couple of years. I used to always sleep in and miss it, so when I finally got to see the whole thing, I just absolutely loved it at the time, and you know, these films are what shaped my Superman fandom, because the first superhero film I ever saw was Superman the movie, which is probably why I'm more of a Superman fan than anything else. I reckon if I'd have seen Batman first, I might have been more of a Batman fan, but as I said before, I do love both, so it's not like a competition. But yeah, Superman 2 was just one of them, where some of the stuff I noticed about it now I didn't notice when I was a kid at all. So, but we'll probably get into that, won't we, as we dive into it. So yeah, that's pretty much my story. Just saw it at Christmas time.
All right, nice. Okay, Jamie, what about you?
I saw this in the theater. My dad took me to see it, which I guess that would have been, summer of 81. I had my first geek fight during that movie, which was amazing, because the kid sitting behind me kept talking about Spider-Man, and I was like, why are you talking about Spider-Man in a Superman movie? And like, it got to the point where they were fighting on a rooftop in that battle where they're throwing down a Metropolis, and the kid behind me yells out, if Spider-Man was there, he'd shoot webs all over him and trap him. And I just turned around and looked at that kid and I said, are you kidding me? He'd break right through those webs like they weren't even there. And my dad was like, sit down, be quiet.
Wow.
So that was my first geek fight. Before Twitter, before I even really went to a comic book shop, it was right there in that movie theater watching this movie. I loved it. I mean, it seems like years, but it might have only been months. Like I'd seen Superman the movie on TV at this point, and back then I actually liked Superman the best. Like I loved Superman so much when I was that young that my great grandfather used to call me Superman, and it was really cool. And I always remember him calling me that. But I used to watch like the George Reeves show and all that other stuff when I was that age too. This was my favorite of. It might have been close to my favorite movie behind Star Wars at this point. I loved it. Absolutely adored everything about it, and I'd watch it every chance I got from then on. And then I got old and watched it, and I was like, I still really like the movie, but it just doesn't quite hold the same level of appreciation that I had for it when I was younger.
Mm-hmm. And Brendan, what about you?
I'm just picturing like young Jamie sort of looking like Pugsley from the Addams Family, having to go at this guy, then turning around and being like, don't at me.
I'm telling you, back then I even liked Spider-Man, but I was smart enough to know that Spider-Man's webs aren't going to hold a Kryptonian. I mean, let's get serious, young man.
Yeah.
I know we're both about 5 years old here, but that's bullshit, kid.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
I hope that kid is listening right now.
I hope he is too, and I want to see him again because now he needs to feel the back of my hand because I'm still mad about it 40 years ago.
He might have spent his life searching for you. Like you might be his one true enemy, and it's going to come after you now.
I'm going to find him, have him as a guest, and he'll be like, my memories of Superman 2 is I was just enjoying a movie and talking about Spider-Man, and this guy in front of me turned around and just laid into me.
He was only a kid, but he was still 6 foot tall.
This huge child turned around, started yelling at me about Spider-Man's webs.
Listen, if you're going to talk about comic book stuff, come correct. Don't be throwing this bullshit at me. I don't want to hear it.
Oh, good Lord. I honestly can't remember the first time I saw this. I know it would have been around the time of Lois and Clark, because that's when I watched Batman as a kid. I was aware of Superman, like just through the, everyone knows who Superman is, but it was when Lois and Clark hit is when I really started to pay attention to the character. And that's when I went back and watched the original 4 movies. So it would have been around sometime in 94 or 95. But yeah, I can't remember my my first time. I remember rewatching the original 4 movies in the lead up to Superman Returns coming out, and that's sort of the first time I remember really paying attention to them. Yeah, I won't give away too much, till we sort of really get into the movie, but it's certainly something. I'll say that.
Oh, well, okay then. So this is one of those, like you said, Brendan, I don't remember the first time I saw Superman 2. It was just one that I already knew, and I always mixed it in with Superman.
Has it always been there?
I was deliberately not saying that. It is. I always mixed it up with Superman the movie, and I never really, as a kid, could never quite figure out where one ended and the other began because they were so similar. And now, being older and knowing the story behind it and how so much of it was shot simultaneously, it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I could never remember which was which. And then when it was on TV, I always hoped it was Superman 2 because I loved the 3 Kryptonians. I loved Zod, Non, and Ursa. I thought they were so cool. And so as a kid growing up, my knowledge of these movies was whenever they would show on TV, I would watch them then. I loved them because we all know in the early 80s, there wasn't as much superhero content to enjoy, so this was one of the only games in town. So if a Superman movie was on TV, I was watching it, and I always hoped it was this one. Because growing up, in my mind, the best Superman movie was Superman 2, because it was the one where Superman got to fight 3 evil Kryptonians. That was the hook. And so if it was one that, if I would watch it on TV and it was like, oh no, this is the one where he turns the Earth backwards, I was always like, oh man, I want to see the fight in Metropolis. So
everybody knows the best is the one where he's fighting Nuclear Man, okay?
I was going to say it was the one with Richard Pryor, but hey.
I watched the shit out of Superman 4 because it was on cable nonstop when I was a kid and it was still Superman. So I watched the hell out of it.
I watched the hell out of it because Mariel Hemingway was in it.
Also that.
Yeah. When I was a kid, that was my favorite far when I was a little kid.
Yeah. So
I think
I didn't know about
the first one
effects
that I
and
saw.
Spoilers.
Oh, really?
I don't hate that movie. I know it's going to be a couple years before we talk about it, but I know what it is. I think it knows what it is, but I don't hate that movie.
Yeah, I enjoy it too.
Yeah, me too.
Same with 3, although I think I like 3 the least out of any of them.
Yeah, I agree with that. So 2 was my favorite growing up. I remember watching it a lot. This was the one I always wanted to watch. And yeah, it wasn't until the internet was invented and I started digging deeper into movies to realize what happened with 2. And then, watching it now, you sort of see some of the cracks. But as a kid, I never noticed. I just loved it. I just thought it was great. So yeah, I have a really soft spot for this one. I don't think it's the best of them anymore, but it still might be my favorite. I think it's a lot of fun. It's super entertaining. It is certainly not perfect, which we'll talk about, but I loved it as a kid, and so I'm still going to really like it now. But now it's been 39 and a half years, so Steven, where do you stand on Superman 2 now?
I still really like it. I think you can see the seams that you couldn't see before, which I don't quite think they're as noticeable as Justice League, which is a very good comparative movie to make to this one, given the circumstances. But there's just a lot of stuff. It's like when you watch the other cut, the Donner cut, that feels incomplete because I know the scenes carry on in the Lester cut, and then they've purposely cut like bits of humour out, which I appreciate them doing that in that version. But there's a lot of like stuff like that in this as well. There's a few slapstick moments which I think went a bit too far, like the guy on rollerblades. I just don't even get. I don't even get that. I just don't understand why he put that in. But yeah, it still really works for me. Like you say, you can see it. Like I can tell when Gene Hackman's got a body double and a voice double, and I didn't notice stuff like that when I was a kid. But I still really like it. I still think it shows how you make your next film, like, because the first one's very much like an epic. It's almost like a disaster movie, isn't it? The first one, when you think about. And I feel like Superman 2 takes into the more action territory, and I feel like that's still what you do with a sequel. Like, you take Alien and Aliens, both great movies, or Terminator and Terminator 2, again, both great movies, but they take it in different avenues, and I feel like that's still what you do with a sequel. So, from that perspective, I think it still really works.
Mm-hmm.
I still really like the film. I still really get enjoyment out of watching the film, a lot of which, excuse me, may be more nostalgic than actual appreciation of quality or whatnot. It's a very flawed movie. I mean, there's just no kind way to say it. This thing is all kinds of messed up. But there are just certain things about this movie that, whether it's because I love them as a kid or if I still think that they're great today or somewhere in between or combined, like all the stuff that happens in Niagara Falls, I think is really good. And obviously the battle in Metropolis with the 4 of them, I think is really good. Just front to back, I love that. And I could watch that on loop and be satisfied completely. But there are just things watching this movie in my older age, like watching this for the show the other day. First time I probably watched the movie in at least a year, maybe 2 or 3. I don't know. I just, I watch the movie fairly frequently, but it's not like on my regular playlist or anything. It was the most critical eye I've ever had with the film, and I didn't do it on purpose. It's just like, for some reason now the cracks are far more visible to me, and the film overall suffers a little bit because of that. But it's still such a fun movie to watch. Like, this is the first time you really get to see super-powered beings throwing down on a movie screen. Like, now we see it, before this COVID bullshit happened. Now we see it like every month or so. So it's kind of lost a little bit of its luster there. I mean, not to say I still don't think it's cool, because I do. This was the first time this ever happened outside of a cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, there's something to be said for that. I mean, pioneering and whatnot. But I still think 1 is the far superior film overall as far as quality. I mean, obviously this is all subjective. So this was my favorite for years. 1's my favorite now as far as the original 4. But this movie has, I think it has way more to like than it doesn't. But the stuff I don't like is pretty glaring now.
It's hard because you kind of need to judge it based on the time that it was made. Like, you know, watching the big fight in Metropolis and everything the other night, I'm just thinking, like, everything is so slow. Like, there's no real, it doesn't feel like there's any real pace and urgency to it. But then again, it's, you know, that was the height of special effects back then. Like, they couldn't be done any other way. So it's hard to sort of view it through that, I guess, a 1980, you know, critical eye. There is a lot that annoys me about it. Just, you know, and I'm sure it's stuff. I've seen the Donner cut once, like 12 years ago. I'm actually thinking, I've got the next week off work. I'm actually thinking of watching it sometime this week, you know, to compare it, having just watched Superman 2 about 48 hours ago. But there's just things in there that I'm sure is in more the Lester side of things, where Superman and you know, they just have powers that there's no explanation for them. They just kind of do it. You know, I mean, obviously the cellophane S and the kiss of the big ones, but like Zod sort of, you know, just like levitating people, and it was sort of just bugging me watching it the other night. But the Niagara stuff, like Jamie said, is really good. I enjoy. That's probably my favorite segment of the movie. The hotel room looks like it's a set from Batman 66, but just sort of like the plain black background with stuff in the foreground, like that kind of made me chuckle a bit. But it's not a movie that I love. I think my favorites of the original series is probably 1 and 4. I know 2 has a lot of love, and I think that's probably for a lot of it has to do with nostalgia and when and how you saw it as a kid, I think. But I mean, it's a fine movie. I'll watch the originals, or at least the original 2, every 3 to 4 years. I think it's probably about 3 years since I've watched it. I was thinking the other night, but it's fine. It's not one that I really love or even particularly like that much.
So wait, are you saying you think 4 is better than this?
I think I have a better time watching 4, but like I was saying before, number 4 was the first of these movies that I saw around sort of 94-ish. So I kind of have a little bit of nostalgia for number 4, because from memory, it was the only one that I owned. It was on television and I taped it. I didn't own any of the other ones. So even though at the time it was, 7-ish years old, I probably saw it the most as a kid, because it was the one that I had. So I have a bit of nostalgia for number 4, whereas I don't so much with the other 3.
Never underestimate the power of Mariel Hemingway, sir.
I guess not.
Look, I'm not saying it's a better movie, don't get me, because it's not. I haven't seen it for years. And I know the effects and stuff are terrible, but
John Cryer's delivery of "Oh no!"
Yeah.
John Cryer is delightful in that film, and I stand by it. So it came out in 1987. So when's the 39.5-year anniversary? So we can do an episode.
Jeez, you're a bitch.
We'll do it, and it'll be great. So I still love the movie, and I think some of it's nostalgia, but I also think there's a lot about the movie that still works, that's still actually good. I think most of those good things are Richard Donner things, but there are a couple things that are Richard Lester things that I still like. And so I still love watching the movie. I can always watch the movie. It makes me happy. I think that, legitimately, Terrence Stamp as Zod, Sarah Douglas as Ursa, and Jack O'Halloran as Non. They're great. And I think they're a huge reason that this movie is so darn watchable. And a lot of their scenes were Richard Lester. So I got to give a little bit of credit where credit is due as far as making them work. A lot of that falls to Lester. But also, Christopher Reeve is great, and Margot Kidder is great, and that falls very much to Richard Donner. So there is some really weird choices, and it gets really bad at the end that are just baffling, and you're just like, what brought you to this? What made you decide that this was the way to go at this point? And a lot of it, like, you can forgive up to a certain point, and then then things finally go off the deep end, and you're like, wait, what's happening now? So I am not blind to the issues of the movie. There are a lot of issues of the movie, and it's funny because as I was watching it, and I should have said at the beginning, we watched the theatrical cut. The theatrical cut is the version that is turning 40 in 6 to 12 months' time, depending. So that's the one we watched because, as you know, we've discussed it on the show before, and people have asked, like, oh, do you prefer the Donner cut or the Lester cut? And I always said, like, I hate to say it, but I prefer the Lester cut, not because I think it's better, but it's actually a complete movie, whereas the Donner cut, there wasn't enough footage to fill in all the gaps, and those gaps to me were very apparent. And so it's fun to see what it could have been, but I don't think it holds together as a movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Like I said to you in a message the other night, I grabbed my Batman and Superman Blu-ray box set, and I hadn't watched the Superman movies on that yet. And to my surprise, it only has the Donner cut. It didn't have the theatrical cut at all. I had to get my old DVD box set out. Yeah,
that's crazy. Because I understand why that is the fans' preferred cut. Because if I had a time machine and the whole movie could have been Richard Donner, that is the way I would have liked it to go. But as far as the cuts exist, the Lester cut still feels more complete than the Donner cut does. But yeah, it is weird that they packaged some of the more recent sets with only the Donner cut. Fortunately, I have both, so I did watch this, and I haven't revisited the Donner cut in a long time, so I do want to revisit it sooner than later, especially now that I just rewatched the theatrical. But that is the one we're talking about. And so there's a lot that I like about it. Unfortunately, the seams do show, especially once you get older and you know the backstory. And I'll tell you something, and maybe it's embarrassing to even say, but it was pretty recently when I figured out which scenes weren't Gene Hackman. So
really,
yeah, because I was never looking for it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
He's there and he's in the entire movie from beginning to end. So I never thought twice about super wide shots with voiceover. I just went, oh, okay, sure, it's a creative choice, and it's just because we were supposed to see that they're traveling. It never dawned on me that the person talking is a sound alike, and now it's not Gene Hackman. Never even crossed my mind.
That bit, yeah. He's on that wherever he gets it from as well. That ski thing.
Yeah,
that's not him. Yeah.
So yeah, there were a couple things but I never was looking for them, and then on this watch, I was looking for them, and I went, oh, okay, now I see how they did it and where those moments are and everything, and it's almost better if you don't know, because if you don't know, it's not super noticeable. But if you do know, then you look.
To be honest, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, so Gene
ruin the movie for me. Do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna ruin the movie for you. I'm so sorry, because watching it growing up, to me, I never saw the seams, never once. But we all know that Richard Donner shot most of the movie, I think about 75% of the movie, and then they were like, we're going to stop with any footage for part 2. We just need to finish part 1. We'll come back to part 2 later. All of that. And then he had a falling out with the producers, and I guess one of the biggest sticking points was producer Pierre Spangler. Richard Donner, Pierre Spangler. I guess it was Spangler and Donner who hated each other.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, like, it wasn't so much that Donner and the Salkins hated each other. It was that Spangler and Donner hated each other. And Donner says, I'm not coming back if Spangler's still there. And the Salkins are like, well, he's our guy. We're not firing him. And that was, I guess, a big part of why they split. But anyway, they hire Richard Lester. And Richard Lester comes in. He shoots all the footage that Donner didn't get to. But then in order to get the directorial credit, he had to reshoot certain scenes to get a certain percentage of the movie that he shot himself. And so, but when he did those reshoots, Gene Hackman didn't come back, and neither did Ned Beatty, and neither did Miss Tessbacher, Valerie Perrin.
Okay.
Yeah. She just disappears from the movie, doesn't she? Like,
And so, yeah, and so that's why Otis is only in the beginning, and he's left in prison. That's why Miss Tessmacher gets Lex out of prison, gets into the Fortress of Solitude, but after they leave the Fortress of Solitude, you never see or hear her again.
True.
But with the way the story works, it's not that big of a deal because at that point, Lex is a solo act for the second half of the movie. So, again, as a kid, I never went, oh, what happened to Miss Tessmacher? I just was like, oh, like, Lex is off on his own now.
Yeah, for some reason, it never even dawned on me until you just mentioned it. Oh, yeah. She does disappear.
She's just gone. And then... But anyway, Gene Hackman didn't come back for any reshoots with Richard Lester. So any footage with Gene Hackman is Richard Donner footage. And so there are a lot of parts that include Lex that they had to be creative with shooting because they didn't have Gene Hackman. So they had a body double and they had a voice sound alike. And most of those moments are... I think they're very creatively done in that they're usually super wide shots of like Lex and Miss Tessmacher traveling across the snow towards the Fortress of Solitude, or they're on the hot air balloon, or they're leaving the Fortress of Solitude, and you just hear their voices, but you don't get close-ups of the actors. A lot of that is Lex sound alike, and then it's very noticeable. If you're looking for it, about to ruin it for you, is at the end during the climax in the Fortress of Solitude. There's a couple shots of Lex sort of like crawling down the wall to get where the rest of the people are.
Yeah.
And that's a body double. And there's just like he's saying funny things. Like I can't remember what he's saying, but he has a couple like little one-liners as he's crawling down, and that's a sound alike. So it's funny because they got all the footage of him. All of his close-ups of him interacting with Superman, interacting with Zod and Ursa and everyone, but it was those shots of him just getting there that they didn't have, and they were just able to use the doubles for that.
Interesting. The one thing I did notice this time, like watching it, that I'd never noticed before is clearly some brand of electric razor was a sponsor of the movie, because in the first 20 minutes there's two different scenes with two different guys just using electric razors for no reason while they're at work.
Yeah.
Never noticed that before.
This movie, and I think it adds to the charm of the movie, is that like so much product placement.
Cigarettes.
Oh my God, Marlboro everywhere. Yeah.
There's the Coca-Cola sign in there. Oh, that's the big one.
The Coca-Cola sign has always been one of my favorite shots. Like I love the shot of Zod flying into the Coke sign is just cool. And like, yes, it's flagrant, but also like, yeah, they're in the middle of quote unquote Times Square. There would be a giant neon Coke sign. So I don't know. Like it's one of those things that actually works. But yeah, the KFC thing, I always get really sad when they get blown away because I'm like, oh, they didn't get to enjoy their delicious KFC. That's so sad to me. If you've ever listened to any of our reviews, I always get sad in movies when people's food goes wasted. Like
I was watching Twister about 2 weeks ago, and I thought of you when the lemonade went flying.
When the lemonade on top of the truck, oh my God, I still mourn for that lemonade.
I almost poured one out just in memory of it.
Yeah, thank you. And then here, they sit down at the diner. Lois orders. Lois can eat, and I respect that in a woman. She orders that huge order, and then they get in a fight, and she never gets to have her cheeseburger. And I'm always like, she's still hungry, like. And it should be on the house after Clark just gets his ass handed to him. Anyway, so. Yeah, it's like those seams were not apparent as a kid. Oh, another one is the president. So the president is E.G. Marshall.
Yeah.
And he's really only in the two scenes. He's in the scene in the Oval Office when Zod shows up. And then he is on the TV where he's like, Superman, Superman, if you can hear us. Because I realized even at the end when Superman flies back and brings the top of the White House back with the American flag and he says, sorry, Mr. President, I won't leave you again. They never cut to the president.
Yeah.
You never see it.
Shot in it,
yeah. Because leading up to Zod getting to the White House, they do all these shots in the Oval Office and it's just the back of the president's head.
Yeah. Well, I just realised is art from National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. So that's that's blown my mind.
Yeah, E.G. Marshall. And also, he's the bug guy from Creepshow.
And 12 Angry Men too. I remember him from that, but I never put it together with Superman 2. It's the hair.
It's the hair.
It completely threw me.
Don't piss me off, Art.
That was brilliant, Love that film.
But yeah, like leading up to the president, and again, it's kind of a smart way to do it because it's like, well, they just show him from the back because then you have the reveal of like someone sitting in for the president, like posing as the president as a decoy. So they treat it as a reveal, which I'm like, oh, that actually kind of works that we hadn't seen him until that point.
Yeah. So have you guys ever noticed in Perry White's office is a picture of Bill Cosby?
Yeah, that's so weird.
I did notice that this time around.
I mean, it's even weirder now because of what's happened, but why would you have a picture of Bill Cosby? It makes no sense. It's just there.
So strange. I thought the same thing. I'm like, of all the celebrities to have a photo of in the Daily Planet, Bill Cosby?
Yeah, it was weird.
It's so strange.
It's not even like a good picture, is it? It's like a really close-up shot of his face as well. Yeah, very weird.
Well, and apparently, I guess he had a famous bit in his stand-up about Superman. And so that's the theory as to why that's there.
Oh, weird.
But it is super weird.
The Bond fan in me was happy when Clifton James showed up too, playing the exact same redneck sheriff that he plays in Live and Let Die.
Wait, that is the same guy?
Dude, it's the same actor playing the same character.
Holy shit, I did not know that. All I could think to myself was one of these guys was imitating the hell out of each other, whether by coincidence or not. I didn't know it was the same guy.
No, same actor.
So is he the one he's in the cop car with the younger deputy and they get intercepted by Zod? Yes. Okay, so I got to tell you, that's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. It cracks me up.
Because I don't know if I'm getting the line exactly right, but he says to the younger cop in some form or another, if you're going to be a peace officer, you got to learn to kick some ass.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that is
he plays
one of the most ironic and funny lines
in Live and Let Die, except he's more redneck and more racist.
Wow.
Like down to the name and everything? Or just...
No, different. In Superman 2, he's just sheriff. But in Live and Let Die, he's J.W. Pepper is his name. And he also has a recurring role in The Man with the Golden Gun as well, because he was that popular in Live and Let Die. But yeah, he same costume. He looks exactly the same.
Wow.
It's crazy.
And both of those Bond movies would have preceded this, right?
Yeah, but not by much.
Maybe that's what happened to his character.
I'm pretty sure, because I know there's photos of Roger Moore and Christopher Reeve, because they were both shooting Superman and Bond at Pinewood at the same time, if memory serves. But there's photos of them together with Reeve in the Superman costume.
Oh, really?
I remember hearing that or seeing it,
I remember Brendan telling the story about how Roger Moore said, yes, the Clark Kent disguise really does work, and here's why.
Yes. So I remember, I always thought that they have a wide selection is so funny. I don't know why. It cracks me up. Not all of Richard Lester's goofiness works for me. This one does. And so when I watched the Donner cut and they cut that entire conversation, I was like, shenanigans! That conversation is hilarious. I don't like it.
But that's what I mean when you watch the Donner cut, you notice things are missing, and because you knew it was there.
Yeah,
it feels like it's just edited out, doesn't it? It's jarring.
It's not like, at least for me, it's funny in a very real way, as opposed to some of the stuff that happens in the fight with the ice cream nonsense and the kid, and the guy in on the roller skates with the glitter vest, the lady's wig flying off. That's the stuff where I was like, okay, that's too much. Stop. The guy's still talking on the payphone as it gets blown away, like all that nonsense. That's the stuff where I was like, oh, come on, Richard Lester, like you don't need to do this. But some of the humor like that, to me, I think is actually really funny.
To be fair, when I was a kid, I found most of what you just said hilarious.
I think I did too. I think you're right. Like as a kid, I thought it was all hysterical, and then watching it now, you go, oh, like man, they're really.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was designed for kids.
Yeah, because you're supposed to be really scared because Superman. We think, and we don't, but they all think Superman is dead, and so now these Kryptonians turn on the people in Metropolis. So it should be a scary moment, but because all of this goofy shenanigans, it's not scary anymore. It's just silly.
It's so funny how like that sentence you just said mirrors 2017.
Yeah.
Like these dark things that you're meant to be scared of, and Superman's supposed to be dead, but they add this fun stuff in. Like, the parallels are crazy.
Right.
So, like, I know we're jumping all over the place too, but
that's okay. Like, that's how I envision this. Is like this is sort of just stream of consciousness. We're not doing a full comprehensive look, like like some of the other podcasts we do. This is just a chat.
Yeah. The astronaut, who's talking to Houston.
Yeah.
God, he looks like Stephen Baldwin.
Yeah,
he totally does.
Yeah.
Insane.
Barney Rubble.
Yes.
I thought the same thing, and I was like, that doesn't pan out. He wouldn't be old enough, but I did a double take for sure.
Let's not forget to mention, because it has to be done, John Ratzenberger in there.
Yeah, he had a quick little shot in the first movie, and then he's
he's in 1 and 2, isn't he? Yeah.
Is he supposed to be the same character, or is it just they just liked him, and so he's in both?
I think in the first one he's working in the army for the army in here.
And here he's like with NASA.
He could be technically, yeah.
And maybe he transferred after the events of the first film.
I mean, you just have to take this into consideration for a moment. With the exception of Stan Lee, has there ever been a single actor that has had better cameos in more films over the years?
Than John Ratzenberger?
Yes.
Valid point.
Well, the guy that he's talking to in that scene, the actual, like, the main controller back at Houston, that actor, Shane Rimmer, he's got a massive role in The Spy Who Loved Me. So that's another Bond alumni in this movie as well.
That's
They were
nice,
just running
Brendan.
through Pinewood, picking people out of the stands.
They were. Like, they totally were. Oh, my God. And, okay, so I just looked at IMDb. So the guy who I just said is in The Spy Who Loved Me, he is in Batman Begins. He's the guy who's done the whole, like, it's gonna blow.
Yeah, that is him. I just realised when you said it, yeah.
Does he just live at Pinewood and they just put him in everything?
He must. That's crazy.
out
I
brushing
did
his
not
teeth.
know
Oh,
that
just get a suit
until
on.
right now.
So not very many people know this. It's a little known fact. Pinewood has a long room with a series of lockers, and you just walk up and open one of the lockers and pull an actor out.
I mean, it's
put
efficient.
them in a scene, and then when you're done, you spray them off and hang them back up in the
Put
locker.
him back.
He only died last year. I never ever knew that was the same guy from Superman and The Spy Who Loved Me.
When you
the
said
Mickey-
it, actually,
the Mickey
clicked
Rooney
on it,
looking
yeah.
guy in Batman Begins is him.
Huh. The
I'll
more
tell you
you
one
know.
thing I miss in the Donner Cut, the opening in Paris, because I always loved that scene. That's a Leicester scene.
Yeah, and
Oh, wow.
speaking of, the head terrorist is Richard Griffiths.
Yep.
Who's like what, Uncle Dudley? Is that his name in Harry Potter?
Oh yeah.
And like he's he's done a million things. Like he's
He's
like
done
this.
loads of stuff over here.
Naked Gun. Was it number 2 he was in, I think?
Yeah, he's like the King of England in one of the Pirates movies. Like he's been, I think he passed away recently, but he was like this.
2013.
Oh wow, time flies. But yeah, when I saw him, I was like, oh look, it's Richard Griffiths, and he's younger.
Yeah, he still looks old.
Still not quite young, but younger.
But I love that scene. It's just like a quintessential Superman scene that you.
Yeah.
I kind of always want Superman films to open up like that with.
I like that too.
think
Like I love the idea of like, and again, it was something they added so that way, they had another explosion to free the villains from the Phantom Zone. Originally, it was going to be the rockets from the end of Superman the movie, but
I thought it was quite clever actually to do what they did.
Yeah, like and it's a pretty good sequence, and I love the idea of like, oh, like this is happening, and Lois Lane's on the first flight out there,
The Concorde.
and manages to get through and gets herself in the middle of it. Like, I love her crawling onto the bottom of that elevator and being like, Pulitzer Prize. Just remember, Pulitzer Prize. Like, so Lois Lane. Like, I love Margot Kidder. I feel like she's taken some flack over the years, but I just think she's so great as Lois. She's so tough. Good. She's so charming. Like, I just love her. And something I love about her and Clark, and I love it in the first movie and I love it in this movie, is how, you know, it's the classic love triangle with Lois, Clark, and Superman. But I love when she has that conversation with Clark and she's squeezing the orange juice, which I always remember. Like, it's so funny if we're talking about being healthy and squeezing orange juice and chain smoking.
Yep.
But like in that conversation, she says something that's like a little insensitive to Clark, and he gets sad, and she's like, no, Clark, I'm only saying this because I care. I want, you know, like and I love that she cares about Clark. Because I feel like that sometimes gets missed, you know, in Lois's love for Superman, is you forget that she and Clark are best friends. And I like that they have those moments here, and then when you watch it all come together later on. But that's such a great scene between the two of them.
The Chase Meridian line from Batman Forever.
Which line?
And not like the specific line of dialogue. I'm talking about like the plot line.
Like the idea. Yeah.
Like Chase Meridian doesn't give a shit about Bruce Wayne. She only is in love with Batman. Versus Lois. Lois is in love with Superman, but she also cares for Clark at the very least as a good friend, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Sweep him under the rug and say to help you, you know?
Which like I love Singer completely missed in Superman Returns.
Yes,
missed
exactly.
The whole point of that. Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Is that was something Superman Returns got wrong? Is that Lois couldn't give a shit about Clark? She only cared about Superman, and Lois cares about them both in different ways. And yeah, eventually, when she realizes they're one and the same, those feelings all come together. So, but I just think it's a great scene between the two of them. Like, these two great actors, they have such chemistry. And again, that's the stuff that works in the movie. And a lot of it is Donner scenes, some of it is reshot scenes with Lester. But whoever's directing them, those two are so good that, you know, like, you just feel the warmth there. And with Lois, it's a fine line. She's got to be tough. She's got to be independent, but she still cares. And like, I always thought they found the perfect balance.
Yeah.
Do we know if the Dinah stuff, is that Donna or is that Lester?
It's Donner, that.
It's Donner. Yeah.
He's actually in one of the shots. Yeah, as well, Donner.
Okay. Because I'm curious to know, I noticed watching it the other night, I don't know, this might sound a bit odd, and I don't know, sound a bit shallow, but it's not the case at all. I noticed in some of the scenes, and it really stood out to me in the diner stuff, Margot Kidder's hair and makeup is done in a different way, and she looks prettier than she does in other scenes. Yeah. And I'm just curious if that might be a tell as well, like the way that Margot's hair and makeup is done, in the Paris scene.
Just not the after sex glow.
That could be it too, actually. But
the Lester stuff, I think that's when she started doing the drugs she were on, because her face looks more like gaunt as well. And
it does. Yeah.
You definitely see it in, like, apparently people say you can see it in Christopher Reeve too. I can't tell, but with Margot Kidder you can, especially towards the end. Once Zod invades the Daily Planet, the first half of that scene feels like Lester footage, and then the second half, once Lex enters, is Donner footage. Yeah. And Margot Kidder looks completely different, and it's all the same scene.
Yeah, that's what it is. I think it's maybe not so much hair and makeup, but it's just her physical appearance.
But it's hair and makeup too. Like, it's all of the above. Yeah.
But one of the other things too, I mean, it sort of is a through line with all of these movies when it comes to Lex, you know, the character of Lex, like, you know, him being in prison and just having the machinery to, you know, produce a hologram and follow the sonic waves or whatever it is and things like that. It's just like, you keep saying you're the world's greatest criminal mind, but how are you doing this? You're in prison. Like, you don't have any, capability and stuff. And another thing, too, that stood out to me the other night that's funny is when Lois and Clark go to the fortress and he depowers himself, Jess goes, how the hell do they get home? Because
Yeah.
just two
Where did the
humans
car
there.
come from? Yeah,
that's the thing. And then I was like, well, there you go. The
Yeah,
car
it
all
just
of a
comes out
sudden
of
now.
nowhere.
Yeah. I think the
And
same
from-
thing. I'm like, where'd the
yeah,
clothes
yeah.
come from? Where'd the car come from? No
And
idea.
the thing with that car shot's from Superman 1, just reused.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you know the car that Lex remote controls and it goes off there? I think
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Superman 1. It's that same shot of that same car.
Interesting.
There's loads of same shots in all these movies. Like the Daily Planet, every time it's the same shot from outside.
Andy brought
Special
up
effects when Superman depowers himself. My God.
Andy brought up a point that I want to backtrack and solidify here. That Margot Kidder's Lois has taken a lot of flack over the years. Oh, she's an idiot, can't see through the glasses to know it's him, blah blah. And I don't want to get into a whole thing of comparison, but I mean it's an obvious comparison in modern times that there's a lot of people that really appreciated in Man of Steel and BVS that Lois figured it out right away.
Yeah.
Like, let's not even go with this bullshit of him hiding the identity from her. Just let her be smart enough to figure it out right away. And Lois in these movies didn't figure it out right away, but she did figure it out. And I love so much that the whole thing of the kid going over the rail, which that kid's fallen slower than I've ever seen.
Oh, my God. It takes him a half an hour to fall. It's amazing.
That kid's
if
parents
you
are
really
terrible
watch
as well.
those, the moment where Superman's there to catch him, the kid suddenly just slows down even more. Like, he almost stops before Superman.
Yep.
But anyway,
Yep.
It's like
I
Wile E.
still love that
Coyote
sequence.
falling off a cliff.
Yeah, I love the sequence. I'm not mad at it. I'm just saying you could see a couple of the cracks there too.
It's just wind resistance, that's all it is.
Right.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's the updraft from the falls. The science is
the
sound.
Niagara Falls defies gravity. Not very many people know that. But
Yeah, now you know.
I love that, he saves the kid and then Clark shows back up and she puts together right in that moment. I mean, she did it in the first movie too, but like this was the trigger that really set her off on the line of thought that Clark is never around when Superman is.
Yeah.
And she's got that great scene or shot or whatever you want to call it of her sitting there saying that, I think I don't remember the specific dialogue, but she basically says, I think you're Superman. You're never around when Superman is, and that whole thing.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm willing to essentially bet my life on it. Like I think the Donner cut has the same kind of thing, but she
It's a gun or something, right?
I think she throws herself out a window, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does it in the Donner cut at the start. It's the opening scene in the Donner cut. That she chucks herself out the window.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But
So it's same
honestly,
sort of scene.
I like Brendan. I've seen the Donner cut one time, and it's been years ago when it was first released, so I don't really remember much about it. I love the part where she's so convinced that he's Superman that she's willing to bet her life on it, and he's this is ridiculous, Lois. Come on, just stop. And she pulls that whole. I love the look on her face, like she's so sure sitting on that rail that she's got this figured out. The confidence in her in that moment is great, and the performance by Kidder in that moment is great. And then she does the whole bye-bye baby bit and throws herself into the river, and she's in peril, and Superman, Clark, whatever you want to call him at this point, has to figure out a way to save her, but not give up the Clark Kent identity in the process. I think that whole thing just plays out beautifully.
Yeah.
I love that sequence so much. And then he's got her convinced at the end that he can't be Superman, and she's like, I can't believe that I thought you were Superman. She's her confidence is shattered in that moment. And then of course it comes back around later when they're in the hotel room and he falls down in the fire and his hand's not burned, and that's kind of when the full reveal of that happens. But I love, that's why when I talk about how I love the Niagara Falls stuff, first and foremost, what a nice man, of course he's Jewish, is the best line maybe in any Superman movie ever.
So I gotta say, when you were rewatching it the other day, you tweeted that out because of how much of a kick you got out of that line. And what's so funny is that I watched this movie 100 times as a kid, and me and my sister, we used to giggle our butts off every time we heard, what a nice man. But because we were giggling, we never heard the second part, which is he's Jewish, Like I only ever heard, what a nice man. And So I can't believe it's been this many years and I never heard the Jewish part.
Somebody had to point it out to me like 5 or 6 years ago. I never knew it was there.
Yeah,
until
it's
they
very
pointed it out to me.
quiet. Yeah.
My wife thought, in fact, not this time when I watched it, but the last time I watched it with my wife a couple years ago, I told her that line was in there, and she's like, "No, it's not." And I was like, "Yes, it is." And I played it for her. She's like, "Oh my God!" I was like, "Yeah." So yeah, it's hysterical.
How you were saying, Jamie, when he falls into the fire and he sort of has to, he's just finished trying to keep up the charade of being just Clark. And I love sort of that moment of frustration that he shows, like where he's sort of like, does he punch the ground, or he does something that's sort of just like he knows that there's no way out of this, and the way he shows that frustration I thought was really cool as well. Like he can't trick her now, like she knows.
Yeah.
And
he
gives a great performance there, and Kidder's. Both of their performances, especially regarding that stuff, I think really holds up extremely well.
Right. No, I agree. Like, they're both so good in that scene. And you're right. Like, you see his frustration, and then you see him, like, give in, Like, you see that moment where he's just kind of like, well, okay, now it's time, I also want to call out, because I meant to say it earlier, and I got sidetracked and forgot, the part where they're doing the orange juice thing, and she's telling him to try it, and he puts his thumb underneath the thing and, like, crunches his thumb, and he just kind of looks up a little bit from it, and he's like, I don't know why. I've always found that hilarious, and I think that gag holds up pretty well too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Silly.
I love when they're in the honeymoon suite at the start. I mean, the smarmy bellboy or busboy, whatever he is. My God,
he laughs when this is the name.
I love the way he chews that gum just makes me want to hit it.
Jesus. But when he asks about the arrangements, and she sort of says, you could sleep on the couch. I'm like, that poor son of a bitch is going to have to fold himself into thirds to fit on that couch. He's so
He doesn't
tall.
even look comfortable, though, does he?
Yeah.
To sit on.
I love when he goes, hey, look, Lois, everyone's holding hands. Maybe we should hold hands.
Yeah.
And she's like, here's my hand, Clark. Hold it.
He's so sweet.
It's the little things.
The thing at the Donnercut that bothers me is that they took out the general "Would you care to step outside" line and put in "Ever heard of freedom of the press?"
Oh, I don't even remember
I
that.
hate that they did that.
The general, "Would you care to step outside?" If not for the of course he's Jewish bit, that would be my favorite Superman.
See, that's my favorite.
That.
That's my favorite line ever in a Superman film. So.
The appearance of him floating out there with his arms crossed, and he delivers that line, just literally makes every hair on my body stand up on end, and I'm just like, hell yeah.
Yeah,
because that was like
point,
the cue for the moment that I knew shit was about to go down. It's just, I love it so much.
Yeah.
I actually thought when they did it in, was it Crisis on Earth X, when Melissa Benoist did it for Supergirl? They actually did a good homage to it. Yeah, they did a good homage to it, and I thought it was kind of a similar vibe. Yeah.
Just a classic great Superman moment, I think.
When he gets his powers back, how it all happens off screen, is that meant to be that way? I can't remember it in the Donner Cut, but like it's kind of like they make such a big deal of him losing his powers. He loses them for 2 scenes, and the next time you see him again, he's got it back again. It's kind of like, well,
Yeah.
He did a lot to get a root.
There apparently was a sequence scripted where essentially like the ghost of Jor-El gave him his powers back.
Yeah, but that's actually in the Donner Cut.
Is it in the Donner Cut?
Yeah, he puts his hands on his shoulder and then he sort of fades away.
Oh, I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, I need to rewatch it. I'm going to watch it this week.
It's obviously been a while.
If you just put the Jor-El scenes back in the Lester Cut and cut out some of the goofiness, I think you'd have a perfect, or almost perfect, Superman 2.
Yeah, I felt the same way after watching the Donner Cut. Is I'm like, I feel like you need to preserve a little more of the Lester Cut, and you could get a better combination of the two.
Because the fight in Metropolis is better in the Donner Cut as well, because they put in some extra CGI shots, and there's a scene where Superman punches Non, and that's not in the Lester Cut, and it looks better than when he kicks him. I always thought when he kicked him, it looked a bit goofy, because he's obviously on wires.
Yeah, it looks goofy, but I still like it.
Like anything too.
Well, yeah, but then his mother's in it, but then later on he goes back and he's shouting father, and I'm like, well, why are you shouting for your father when it's been your mother? It doesn't really make sense now when you watch it.
Hashtag release the hybrid cut.
Yeah, that's what I think they need to do.
Someone talented could do it.
I'm sure it's already been done.
Yeah. Well, no, there's a guy called Celutron who did a cut, and he did. You know the scene where they're going to the White House, the Kryptonians. He kind of and the fighting in Texas. He put all that in, and he CGI'd a different background in, so it looked like it was all on the White House lawn. And he used all this extra footage. It's on YouTube actually. I'll send you it all if you want. It's amazing. And Warner Brothers basically said you can't do this. You need to stop doing it. But then they gave him a job because he was so talented.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I guess that works out.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, though, like, it is so funny to watch how artfully they edit around Marlon Brando.
Yep.
Like, I always loved that during the opening credits, how they recap the first film. I always thought that was cool.
Like the whole movie.
Yeah, and we were watching it last night, and Catherine goes, oh, God, I haven't watched Superman the movie in forever. And then it starts out, and we're getting the recap, and she's like, oh, never mind, I'm good. Like, I'm a guest. See, look, this is what they did. The days before home video, they knew that they had to get you back up to speed, and they did it.
I call that the clip show sequence.
You get one shot of Jor-El and it's his hand, but it was actually Richard Donner's hand. That's the only reason they could use it. Yeah.
So it's just so funny how they do that because, yeah, I mean, he was entitled to a huge chunk. He got so much money for the first movie, and then they were like, we're not paying him that much again. So they cut around him. And so I always thought it was funny how, like, you know, now it's his mother, which, again, kind of a creative solution. It sort of makes sense. Except for what you said is when he comes back and he's calling for his father, even though we've only seen his mother. And I also like the way they set that up in that when Lex is in the Fortress of Solitude and he's messing with the crystals, and he puts in one crystal and it's just someone else from Krypton sharing knowledge about trees, and so it implies that depending on which crystal it is, it's someone else from Krypton telling you the information. So that way, it wasn't always all Jor-El. There was always going to be other people in those crystals.
I think the only reason they used that guy as well was because he asked if he's the old man, which is from the Donner cut, and he's talking to Jor-El. So I think they had to use a man in that scene because of the dialogue of Lex had. So, but like you say, it works on two levels then, doesn't it? Because then it tells you that there could be different people in different crystals.
Right.
So the footage, I'm just curious now, you guys might not know, the footage of Brando that they used in Superman Returns, is that cut stuff from the first movie, or was that the stuff that was supposed to be in Superman 2?
No, it's stuff from Superman the movie, but they actually CGI'd his mouth because he said something different, and they just used different dialogue because they wanted him to face it in a different angle. He's only in like one scene in Superman Returns, though, isn't he? He's not.
Yeah, he's not in a lot.
It cost like $40 million or something, which Bryan Singer liked to waste money, didn't he, as we know? Yeah. And cut stuff out. But I was like, do you really need Marlon Brando?
Well, and that was so crazy is that I mean, now we're really going down a rabbit hole, but like that whole movie hinged on the dialogue of like, the father becomes the son and the son the father.
Yeah.
And like, isn't that deleted dialogue from the original film? Or is it in there?
It's in the... Oh, wait a minute. See, I never watched the theatrical cut anymore. I always watched the 2000 expanded edition, which was 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And it's in that, but I don't know if it's in...
I'm not sure.
That's a good question, actually.
Oh, God, yeah, because you're right. Like, now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, wait, no. We watched Superman the movie not that long ago, I think for its 40th. And I remember it, but I watched the extended version, so... Maybe it was always there, so never mind. Maybe I'm wrong. But for some reason,
It's in the scene when he first flies in it. When they're doing like the history lesson in the fortress, and then it goes like glass, and then Superman flies for the first time.
I can't... I'd have... Yeah, it could be.
I've seen it that many times, you think I'd remember, but I can't.
Yeah, come on, Steven. This is your job. You're supposed to know this. Anyway, so I also have to say, and I alluded to it at the beginning, but just like part of what makes this movie so entertaining is Zod, Ursa, and Nan. I think the three of them are so good. Terrence Stamp, I mean, amazing. Like, and again, casting, you got to give credit to Richard Donner, who cast him for the cameo in part 1, so that way he could come back in part 2. But he is so good, and he is still so good. He's menacing. He's still fun, like in a weird way. His dialogue is perfect. Like I love when he's just like, "Oh, these humans are boring me," and when he goes, "Is there no one on this planet who can offer me a challenge?"
Yeah.
He gets so bored so quickly. The way he says the planet Houston without the slightest bit of irony. Oh, it's so great. Like, and Ursa, I love the character trait of her grabbing medals and patches and putting them on her uniform as she goes.
Collecting
I think
trophies.
it is such a funny and weird thing, but it works. Like how every time she can grab this piece of flair from somebody else and she attaches it to herself. It's hilarious.
Do you know what I like about them? They don't say Superman, they say Superman when they say his name as well. They don't.
Yeah.
But I don't know why, but that's how they say it.
But oh my god, and she is so great. And we did a episode a couple months ago about like favorite live action DC villains, and I gave her. I was the only one to give her some love because I think Sarah Douglas is so entertaining in this. And like when she's discovering her powers, and when she talks, and she's like, he actually, you know, like he cares about these people or whatever. Like he's the way she says Superman. Like I love her.
Yeah,
she's amazing.
Here's another question too. This conversation's got me thinking. In the first two movies, do they ever refer to him as Kal-El?
I think just Jor-El in there. I don't think anyone else does.
Son of Jor-El, but yeah, I don't remember.
Like they keep calling him Son of Jor-El. It's like, well, wouldn't they know his name's Kal?
Why?
No, they wouldn't because
they wouldn't actually
they were in
know,
the Phantom Zone already, so they wouldn't know his name unless they learned it somehow.
Yeah,
that's
true.
He doesn't tell Lois his name is Kal-El when she's given the interview in the first movie.
Yeah. I will say
Literally,
this.
the only person that communicates it is Jor-El because he would be the only one that does know his name. I would say the only two that do know his name is Clark and, well, Superman, whatever, and Jor-El. I don't think anybody else had any idea that his name was that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, his mum must have known as well, but that'll be it, won't it? Does she call him Kal-El actually in this?
I don't know. I don't remember it being said out loud. No.
You know something that always got me about this? They had that scene in the beginning where they break like crystal. I'm like, what is it? what do they think they're breaking? Because it's obviously like a decoy to catch them in them rings, the Kryptonians. And I'm like, they break this red crystal, and I'm like, well, what was it supposed to be?
I just really like the robot-looking thing at the start there.
Yeah.
That's got to be a Lester thing.
That looked straight out of like Disney's The Black Hole. That's what it reminded me of.
Have you guys seen the 3-hour cut of Superman the movie that they released?
Yes.
I've seen every version of that I'm aware of.
I don't think I have.
Oh, because that's one of the guards, and he actually one of them gets sent after Jor-El to kill him in the 3-hour cut of Superman the movie. He doesn't quite make it because the planet starts crumbling. But he's obviously one of their like assassins or guards or whatever you want to call them. I don't know what they'd be on Krypton.
I thought that was the coolest thing in the world when I was a kid because it kind of reminded me of a snowtrooper from Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. Well, that's what everyone used to call me, like an Imperial Trooper or something. Didn't they? So. But I've got an extended cut of Superman 2 as well, which was for TV. That's better than the theatrical version as well because you get more scenes of like Gene Hackman's Lex and a bit more in Fortress and stuff like that.
Well, and I feel like if you didn't get more footage of Hackman, you better use every piece of footage you do have. So they shouldn't have cut any of Hackman unless it didn't make sense. But
he's got some brilliant lines as well that got cut. You know, like he's taking mick out Kryptonians and they don't think they're listening. And I'm like, they cut it, and I'm like, why did you cut all that?
Yeah, I love him as Lex. I think that, and what I noticed when watching this is like, I think especially now that we've gotten new versions of Lex over the years, that people will look at Superman the movie and go, oh, he's just a little too goofy, he's a little too campy. But in this one, when you first see him in prison, he's a lot more diabolical. And I love seeing him bald, you know, like, but like that conversation with Otis, and I totally understand your point, Brendan, which is how's he making these amazing contraptions in prison? But like he's a lot more calculating and just a little less goofy than he was in Superman the movie, and I appreciated that. I like that a lot.
But he's still after land when it's all said and done.
Yeah, and he never just strikes me as evil.
But he's a poisonous snake.
He is a poisonous snake.
I don't know. I'm going to say he's pretty evil, isn't he? He wants to destroy half the coast of California, is it, or whatever.
I mean, the plot's evil, but just the way he plays it.
No, I know what you're saying.
He's too likable.
I just think
Like
he
he's
thinks
just
he's
too
above it.
charming.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like
he's
that though, because I think he's above everyone. He thinks he's the be all and end all. Doesn't he?
Oh yeah, I agree. I love him too. I think he's amazing. It's just a different take. But I love the line later on when he's negotiating with Zod, and he says, "Oh, I have a soft spot for beachfront property," which is a hysterical throwback to the first movie. And he's like, "How about Australia?"
Yeah, he wants Australia.
Yeah, which I should tell him nobody lives there but a bunch of.
Oh my god!
Doesn't
I
Zod
love
stage
the back and
ruler of
forth
Australia?
between- as they're going along, there's like a back and forth. Like Zod wants to kill him, and then Lex gives him a reason not to, and like he gives him at one point. I think Zod refers to him like he says to kill him, and then Lex offers up some other piece of information or something that he can do for him, and Zod says, "Lex Luthor, ruler of Australia."
That's at the end.
Yeah.
When he tries to pretend he was with Superman all along.
Yeah.
That bit's hilarious.
It's so great how he does keep weaseling his way out of Zod killing him. And he is just like this perfect con man, is he's got an answer for everything. He's got a way of twisting for everything. And even when Zod's ready to kill him again, and he's like, he cozies up to Superman, he still can't help himself but betray Superman. Like
he to me, the way Gene Hackman plays Lex Luthor, he's a shonky car salesman. Like, he's just all talk. Like, I don't know. Like, to me, Lex is someone. Like, I'll always love it when Lex is on screen, but I want to hate him. You know, like
I think he was playing.
I wanted to test him, but I mean, I know probably back then that version of Lex probably didn't exist either. Like,
that's the thing.
Yeah, like evil businessman Lex came in the mid '80s.
Yeah, 86, I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
So,
and he was basically just ripping off the Kingpin, wasn't he, really, when you think back?
Yeah, so, like, at this point, Lex was just sort of an evil scientist, you know? Like, so, no, I love Hackman's version. I find him incredibly entertaining. I get it. He's not, like, super evil. He's not the Lex that we now come to expect or that we want, but for the time, I think he's great, and his performance is great. And if he's too charming and you like him too much, oh well, sucks to be Hackman that he's just that charming.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to make sure that I called attention to, because this is possibly my least favorite thing in the movie, and it's not because of the quality, it's just because it just irks me so bad and has ever since the first time I saw the movie. In the middle of the fight, like, they're just throwing down, and that one annoying ass woman in the office keeps giving her commentary on the matter, and she gives that bit of, the big one's just as strong as Superman. Oh God, I want.
Yeah, and she's not a very good actor, because she starts looking like she's going to laugh straight away, doesn't she, as well? As soon as she says it.
It's almost like she's doing it for the benefit of the audience. It's like, bitch, we've been watching the movie, like, we know what's going on.
Exposition. It's all that particular, like, everything she says bothers me, but that particular line, ever since I was 5 years old, 6 years old, whatever it was, when I saw this movie for the first time in the theater, I was like, oh wow, you need to go away, lady.
But even Zod with the exposition explaining, like, he just all of a sudden knows, he's like, yeah, as soon as we get somewhere with a yellow sun, we're really powerful. It's like, how do you know that? You've never had this happen before.
Yeah.
He's smart. He figures it out.
And I was supremely disappointed moving on from that tender young age to realize that Kryptonians couldn't shoot laser beams out of their fingertips.
So here's the thing. I will say, like, when Zod, like, levitates the dude in Houston, Idaho, which, again, that whole sequence I think is a lot of fun. Again, I love when he's got the guy picked up and the little kid is like, "Excuse me, mister," and Ursa goes, "He's a general." And he's like, "Excuse me, Mr. General." I love that.
Why is he British for that kid?
Because because they're shooting in Houston, Idaho, England. That's why.
Because they pulled him out of one of the lockers at Pinewood.
But it's funny because, like, it's a Lester scene because of this weird new superpower. But, like, if it was just the new Kryptonians who had the new powers, I would almost give it a pass, because I'd go, oh well, for whatever reason, their powers work a little different than Superman's. And you can just sort of buy that, but at the end, when like all rules go out the window, that's when you're like, oh, no, nothing makes sense anymore. It's all nonsense. But like, I'm almost willing to give it a pass at that point, because it's like, well, like the yellow sun could have a different effect on this Kryptonian than it does Superman, and so their powers are a little different. But I want to try and make it work, but it doesn't.
One thing that I did just think of that made me laugh my ass off watching it the other night, the scene with Superman's mum. We were talking before about, there not being Brando. They really went with continuity with everyone referring to it as Krypton. It wasn't Krypton. Everyone.
I even said something to my wife
Krypton.
about that the other night. I said, I don't know why they insist on calling it Krypton, but it annoys me.
It's because of Brando.
Well,
I wonder if they had to pay him because they said it that way.
yeah. On Superboy, George Lazenby played Jor-El, and he says it Krypton as well.
Damn it.
Also, in regards to that, I think it's still that Houston, Iowa scene that Andy was referring to. Ursa's calling out how pathetic the humans are because they need machines to fly.
Oh, it's so good. I
And
love
Zod
that.
says something about, go ahead, my dear, blow them a kiss. That whole bit there,
Yeah.
I think is...
It's
What about-
great.
They kill that boy, don't they? When he's running off that horse as well. Chuck that thing at him, don't they? He gets killed.
Oh, I don't know. I felt like it was sort of just ambiguous. I just assumed he survived, but I guess in the extended version, it's clear that he does get killed.
Yeah, because she says something about he's a boy, will never be a man or something. I thought is that not in the Leicester version? I thought it was.
I don't think so.
Is
I don't
it not?
think that it is.
I
no.
think sometimes I fill in blanks, because I've seen like multiple versions. I think
Yeah, I don't think that's in there.
That doesn't
Alright.
sound familiar to me, and like I said, I only saw the Lester cut the one time.
Yeah,
so-
Yeah,
I
it
watched
must be
it.
in the
I watched it
comic
last
book,
night.
Or
I think that
comic
kid
book,
survives in the theatrical cut. But yeah, like that. Again, the whole scene, them looking down on the humans and just how pathetic we are is so fun. Or oh my god, when the newscaster is trying to do his news report and they just walk up into the shot. And the way Zod's like, all right, you may continue. Like where he's like, who's seeing this? Well, pretty much everyone. It's like, all right, continue. It's so good. I love it. To go back to like the crux of the movie, the whole movie about with Clark and Lois is really about, him finally revealing his secret. They go off to the Fortress of Solitude. They have date night. They confess their love to each other, and then he makes the decision of he's going to give up his power so he can be with Lois. First of all, I like that he does this. He does this without even asking Lois what her plans are. Like,
Yeah,
he
it was
just
1980,
assumes.
dude. It didn't matter.
He just assumes. Like, she just goes to change, and he's like, all right, well, while you're changing, I'm going to have a talk with my mom and give up my powers forever. I hope you're okay with it. And so she comes in, and he's already doing it, and she's like, wait, well, I just went to the bathroom. What did I miss?
Well, now we know why Bill Cosby's picture's hanging up in this movie, don't we? What,
Well, I
too
was going to ask
soon?
you guys.
I'm sorry.
sorry,
about
go on.
that. That was too soon.
Nah.
In the Donner cut, they have sex before he loses his powers, and in the Leicester cut, they have sex after. So, which do you think is better, or
I think it makes more sense to them to have sex after he loses his powers. Because
Yeah,
we've
I
all
would
seen Mallrats. We know what happens if they were to have sex when he has powers.
well?
I
possibly.
think for all the critiques that Man of Steel and Batman v Superman have taken for things Superman wouldn't do, things that are uncharacteristic of Superman, Superman wouldn't kill, Superman would make sure that the civilians were safe in the middle of a knockdown, drag-out fight for the first time in his life. These people are holding him up to the standard of a guy who literally tossed his powers and ability to save humanity so he could get some.
Yep.
I'm
I don't
just
blame
saying.
him, like, but
I just feel
saying.
like it's a huge road to go down on the first date. That's my point. I don't know how you fix it. I'm just saying that's a huge life-altering decision. You wait at least till you've been together for a month to see if it's going to work.
Yeah.
yeah, but I think how old is he in this? Like in his 30s, and he hasn't been
Yeah.
laid yet. He probably thinks I've waited long enough.
That's probably true. There are so many holes in the ceiling of his bedroom because of lonely nights by himself. So I did think that, like, he's already made the decision, and she kind of walks out in her robe, and he's losing his powers, and I'm like, dude, seriously. But here was something I was thinking of is I feel like it has been observed before, but it's crazy to me how much the Raimi Spider-Man trilogy lines up with the Superman trilogy.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. Like, Raimi had to have loved these Superman movies because it is there's so many parallels. Like,
Isn't
the
he
first
on record as saying how much he loves those movies?
I'm pretty sure he has said yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Because like the first Spider-Man movie and the first Superman movie structurally are very much the same. Like, even to the point where like the whole the hero finally reveals himself montage is like almost exactly the same. And there's the shirt rip, and here
Or
like
the part at the end where Spider-Man wraps the planet in a big piece of web and yanks it and spins it like a top backwards so time goes by.
I think that's the TV cut. But like in this one, you know, at the end or during the big battle in Metropolis, and they think Superman's dead, and all the Metropolis, I keep wanting to say New Yorkers, but you know what I mean. All the people of Metropolis are like, all right, like they killed Superman, let's get him, and they all like that moment is right there in Spider-Man 1.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, thank you for calling my attention to that again, because I love moments like that in movies where the crowd just, you know, you mess with him, you mess with us kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2, and I love it in both. I love it in this. I love it when the people of that city or whatever just have their moment of, you're messing with our guardian, now we're going to protect him.
Yeah.
I don't know why that always does so well with me, but I just absolutely love that.
It's even in The Amazing Spider-Man as well.
I forgot that movie even existed, and I'm going to continue.
I quite like that movie, actually.
Well, and then
I want to.
Spider-Man 2 is really a very similar arc for Peter Parker, where he essentially gives up Spider-Man so he can try to have a normal relationship with Mary Jane, and that's exactly what this is. This one, I think it's a lot more succinct in this one, so I almost prefer this version than I do the Spider-Man 2 version, because the Spider-Man 2 version is drawn out of how much.
Yeah, but it does have raindrops keep falling on my head, so there is that. Spider-Man 2.
Yes, there is. That is true. That's what we're missing from here, is we're missing where Clark walks around Metropolis just happy as can be. But like, yeah, still very much like the same basic core story. And then the third one, yeah, like essentially the hero versus the dark version of himself. So it's just funny how the parallels between the three Spider-Man movies and this one all about, yeah, the hero gives up his powers and his hero persona for true love and realizes, oh, guess what? It's not that simple.
Well, you know, I came a little bit to the defense of Superman 3 earlier, so just because we're on the topic, cut out Venom and the Mountain Dew Goblin from Spider-Man 3. I think you got yourself a pretty good Spider-Man movie.
I agree with you.
There's a lot that I like about Spider-Man 3, and there's a lot that I don't like. So it's a very much a mixed bag, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. It was more just me. I was just like, it's just crazy how the Raimi trilogy really lines up with this one.
No, I think you're right.
But yeah, I love Christopher Reeve's performance. Like, I mean, it's sad when he gets his ass kicked, where I'm like, oh man. But like when he sees what has happened, he's only been gone a day, and when he sees again like how hasty he was in giving up his powers, and he's like, oh shit, like, yeah, I got to try something. I got to go back. I got to try something. Like, he gives a really good performance as always.
She could have at least driven him.
I know, right? They had that car.
Yeah.
Just drive him back, right?
Yeah, taking him and then gone. Yeah, I didn't think of that. See, the thing is, people had a go at Crisis, didn't they? Because Smallville's Superman retired.
Yeah.
But Superman does kind of have a reputation of, like, quitting and then coming back. It's happened even in comics and stuff, hasn't it? You know, that whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow, he quits at the end of that. So it's not like he's not willing to quit when he's had enough, or when in this case he wants to get laid. So
yeah. Well, and then this one, I mean, again, that's kind of what I like about this one is he quits, but like he realizes what a mistake that was. Like it's for a day, you know, like it's not this long thing where he sees the error of his ways pretty quickly. So I like that about this.
Yeah.
So
I also love how in the middle of this fight, when all of these civilians are in danger, he just decides to haul ass and get out of there. Because
like,
you know,
I'm done with this.
The Henry Cavill Superman is completely not Superman. He would never do something like that. So you know, this
Jeez, don't the
Superman.
crowd let him have it too?
I mean, this Superman hauls ass and takes off and doesn't bother to stop and see if anybody's going to be safe after he's gone.
That's a good point. And how does he know that they're going to know to come to the fortress as well?
That's what I was just about to say.
Yeah, like where was he? Yeah, where was he going? Like I always, in my memory, he left so they would follow him. But that's not how it goes down. Is he leaves, and then they're like, well, what do we do now? I guess we win. And it's not until Lex says, hey, I know where we can find him. Like, so, yeah, what was his plan?
I didn't have one.
You know, they're just living left. Not very guardian of the earth kind of thing going on there. I'm just saying.
I mean, to back up though, like we all sort of mentioned it one time or another, but I gotta say, like, the battle in Metropolis still is one of my favorites. It, as a kid, you're right, it was just pure magic. Yes, it shows its age a bit. It's not as perfect as I remember it, but it's still really good. I love being able to use all of
the manhole cover was God. The whole thing.
Awesome.
There's not a bit of it that I don't like. You know, blowing up the fuel tankers with the heat vision, the Coke sign, the manhole cover, trapping Non underneath the radio tower or whatever that thing was. Like, every bit of it, I think, works and I think holds up pretty well, with the exception of the fact that it does, by today's modern standard, feel like it's going in slow motion.
Yeah, because it's not paced as quick, is it? And I think Brendan mentioned earlier about that. I think he's right.
Yeah.
But like you say, you've got to put yourself in that mindset of 1979, 1980, ain't you? Where this was probably like at the time everyone blown away by this. So.
Yeah.
I mean, keep in
it's
mind,
great.
Just a couple of years earlier, the very big deal about it was the believability of somebody flying. Like, that was the big special effects selling.
Yeah.
I mean, it said it right on the freaking poster. You will believe a man can fly. They were so proud of that. And now they've got people flying, punching, kicking, throwing things, shooting things. I mean, it's elevated that much just in the span of 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So part of the fight where they it's Superman and Non, how they go under the street. And
that's so well done too, because it's not a visual thing so much as it is an audio and an aftershock of it.
See, to me that kind of felt like, I could be completely wrong, but to me it felt like a budgetary thing. It's like, well, we can't afford to show these two fighting, or we don't have footage of these two fighting. How are we going to get around this? I don't know. It kind of reminded me when in the 60s Batman, when they were running out of money, so they had a fight where the lights got turned out. So you couldn't see anything, you could just hear it. So they've just got a soundstage with extras just sort of like acting like they're shaking. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that was...
Yeah, I reckon it was probably it probably was a budget thing, but they came up with something clever to get around it, if that makes sense.
That's just it. I mean, whatever reason that it happened, to me, the scene still plays quite brilliantly. So, because you're getting the quote audience reaction to it at that point. The bystanders are reacting to it, the ground shaking and all these noises and everything else. And I think it plays beautifully. I wouldn't change it if I could.
You'd probably get both now, wouldn't you? You'd get shots of them fighting underneath, and then the up above shot of it rumbling and all that. Yeah,
I like it because there's so much other, like, there's already a lot of stuff that you do see, so like almost a sort of a break, and a way to probably extend the fight without spending a lot of extra money is just another creative way to do it. And the manhole cover's blowing off and everything, which like it's cool. I like it. But they do have fun with using all of Metropolis as a playground, with the buildings and the signs and everything. Like, it's just, they really treat that as an arena and use all the parts. I really like that about it. It's super cool. And then the moment when Zod says, oh, like, I see his weakness. He actually cares for these people. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think Ursa says something like pets.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's so condescending.
And Zod goes, I suppose so.
It's really well done there.
I was thinking about sorry, go on.
Well, we have like a heat vision standoff between Zod and Superman that like scorches the sign behind Zod and blinds him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that's great too. So
is that with a mirror?
Yeah.
That's with a mirror. That's cool. That bit. Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking with Zod, we've never had a bad Zod, have we? I don't think we've had a bad Zod anyway in the films and TV and stuff. I feel like everyone's been good.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, like, and it's super creative, like the way he uses the mirror to shoot it back at him, and then he uses the super breath to cool off the gas tank and everything. Like, they use the fight uses all of Superman's real powers in really cool and creative ways.
Yeah.
And
He doesn't use them all in one, does he? In one, he only uses like 2 or 3 of his powers. You don't see like super breath in the first one, do you? Do you even see heat vision in the first one? I can't remember.
Oh man, I thought you did, but again,
doesn't he use heat vision to patch up the dam in the first one? Or am I thinking of a different movie?
No, that's Superman 3 with the oil tanker right in it.
That's right. Okay.
Huh.
So I think he only uses like flight and like his strength in the first one.
Flight, strength, and invulnerability.
Yeah.
And
Whereas in
time
this one you
travel.
Well, yeah. Well, that comes down to speed, doesn't it? So you get speed as well.
Oh, so
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, like, I'd have to rewatch it, but yeah. Is there heat vision and super breath in the first film? I thought there was, but you might be right. Maybe there's not. But it is funny because, yeah, the fight in Metropolis, which I do think is the highlight of the movie. I love it. It's just like comic book movie goodness. But it's all of the real powers of Superman, which is how you can tell it's like mostly Donner. And then when they get to the Fortress of Solitude, that's where you get all the made up powers. And that's where things just go off the rails. And
I
so,
thought that cellophane S was the coolest damn thing in the world when I was a little kid. Now I think it's the silliest thing I've ever seen.
I am right there with you. As a kid, I loved it. I thought it was awesome. And I was like, why don't we see that in more stuff? Because it's so cool.
Because it's
now
not
I know.
a thing.
It's because it's not a thing.
I always thought it was a fortress power. That's what I always assumed when I watched it. Like the fortress allowed him to do it somehow. I don't know.
All right, we'll go with his line of logic because it makes as much sense as any other thing I can think of.
And then, so like, yeah, the cellophane S, I'm with you, Jamie. I'm glad you said it. As a kid, I thought it was awesome. But yes, now you go, wait, what the hell? And then the teleporting.
Yes, that was so
The
weird.
cloning or the imaging
Yeah.
or whatever.
And creating
Again,
holograms of
I'm
himself.
still pissed off to this day that Kryptonians don't shoot laser beams out of their friggin' fingers. Because that's cool shit.
Do you want me to make that scene worse for you with the teleportation as well? Because Superman says they used to play it when they were kids. It's like, well, who with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't have those kind of powers in it. He wasn't on Krypton, so what?
Yeah. That's
that
a
bit
great
always
point.
bugs me, that line of dialogue.
Well, and to Jamie's point, like, if Zod, Ursa, and Nan had the laser beams out of their fingers and Superman didn't, I'd be like, okay, I guess they have different powers. But
yeah,
it's so weird. And then the teleporting and then making holograms of himself. See, I would be more prone to believe that the holograms was a Fortress of Solitude thing than it was a power.
that's what I always put on it.
Yeah.
When I did it. Yeah.
Well, that's who he was playing the game with when he was a kid. He just made a bunch of copies of himself, and they all played together.
I guess so.
There's your line of logic right there. It works just as
But
well
he
as
couldn't
what
have
they're
he
talking
couldn't have done it in the Fortress because he didn't create that till he was 18.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's whatever. That's where stuff just goes completely bonkers at that point. Like, how does he control the little power switching chamber?
Reasons?
Yeah, I guess he did. Maybe because he went back before, and maybe he set it up.
Just in case they were going to
Yeah.
come back there later.
Yeah.
He's like, let me just switch this. Gee, you never know. You never know.
Well, this is the thing for me, right? If Richard Donner had finished this film, it would have been very different because he would have had to have done a different ending. So, because he did use the time travel one in the first one, didn't they? So I wonder if he would have filled those little gaps in and things like the reasons they went back to the fortress and stuff, and maybe there was more logic to things, but he didn't get to finish it, did he? So Lester probably just came in and was like, all right, we'll do this, and this.
Yeah.
Was Clark ever given any indication that Luthor had been to the Fortress of Solitude prior to them all showing up? Like, he took off from the Battle of Metropolis in the hopes that they were going to follow him or wind up at the Fortress of Solitude. Was he given any indication to that point that they had been aware of its existence?
No, I don't think. Yeah, it seems like when Lex went there Superman never realized Lex was there, so no.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So, I mean, if you talk about maybe he set it up in the hopes that they were going to show up there and he'd be able to hide in the chamber while they got zapped and take their powers away, he set that up before they got there, which would make sense, except for how would he know that they would come there?
Yeah,
Good
he
point.
wouldn't. Yeah, he got
And the
there
only
first, so
person
maybe
who
he
knows is
switched it
Lois.
then, but then what did he do? He just, like, watched TV while he waited for them?
And again, how did he know that they would come there? How did he know that they even knew this place existed? Unless I'm not thinking of a moment where Lex said, "Hey, we were in your house and we messed all your shit up and left Cheeto crumbs on the floor." You know, it just, I don't know, it's kind of a big logic leap.
Maybe he finds Miss Tessmacher's dead body in there, and he
Right.
Who left this here?
So, yeah. I like when Lex betrays him. And then going back, I have to mention one of the best lines, not just in this movie, but ever, which is when Lex goes off on Zod being like, "What? I deliver you Superman. I promise you Superman. And what do? You let him get away." And Zod has the best line ever, which is, "Why do you say this to me when you know I will kill you for it?" It's legendary.
And he's like, "Kill me, Lex Luthor."
It's so.
If I had a nickel for every time I've used that line. I'd
Exactly.
Have a
It's
shitload of nickels.
it is always good.
I actually
so
have
yeah.
my
a
favorite-
meme saved to
Sorry, go
that
on.
somewhere on my phone.
Oh dear. One of my favorite lines is like them kids who were watching, and he's like, "Oh, Superman didn't even do nothing." I'm like, "Well, he did not do nothing. He did some things, but he's just gone now," and they're kind of disappointed.
Yeah.
They're not worried
When he-
about the 3 Kryptonians that could kill him. They're just disappointed that Superman didn't put up much of a fight.
Well, apparently, so, and I didn't really even think about it because when I watched the movie, I don't feel this way. But Margot Kidder, I mean, she was very loyal to Richard Donner. She didn't really want to do the reshoots, but she did them. And she said that during the reshoots, she was super bored. She spent all her time in her dressing room just reading. And every once in a while, she'd come out and yell Superman and then go back to her dressing room. And she was like, she had nothing to do. And when I watch the movie, I don't feel that way. I feel like she has plenty to do. But when you think about the big fight in Metropolis, yeah, she's just in that window yelling for Superman, right? And then in the Fortress of Solitude, she's just being held by Ursa and crying as everything happens around her. And so I was like, yeah, I guess for the second half of the movie, once Superman like decides to go back to get his powers back, for the end, she doesn't really have a lot to do. So now, like, then it makes a little more sense, but it was just interesting reading that of like, she's like, yeah, I got paid, but I just kind of hung out.
I mean, she murders Ursa.
But at least she, and here's the thing. So yes, she kills Ursa. She gets her
But what about the
Her
North
revenge.
Pole Police, guys?
That is
Love the
only
line.
in. That is only
You're
in
a
the
real
TV cut.
pain in the neck.
Yeah, and smacks her.
um,
But yeah,
There was
the police one, that's only in the TV cut. That's not in. I don't know why they didn't put it in the Donner cut. It's on the deleted scenes, but it's not actually in the film.
I know
no idea why they
because they're
didn't put it
freaking
back in.
dead, and he killed them, and they're cold-blooded murderers. He would never snap Zod's neck, but he sure would break his powerless hand and throw him down a chasm to his final demise.
Anyway, yes. So, and no one even gets to kill Nan. He's just dumb and falls in himself.
Yeah, he just tries to fly.
He just tries to fly and falls in.
Also, when I was a kid, I found that to be the funniest thing in the world, and as an adult, I still find it pretty damn funny.
It's pretty
Yeah,
funny.
it's
Nan is pretty funny. When he can't figure out the heat vision, it's pretty funny. I like it.
Yeah.
Oh, and he's very chuffed with himself because he burns that little hole.
Yes.
Chicken thing.
I love that, where he's so proud. It's so great. But anyway, so yes, Lois, knocks Ursa into the pit of fog. They all end up in the pits of fog, which I guess was an ambiguous enough death that nobody really thought twice about it. But I guess what I was going to say is at the last scene between Clark and Lois, I don't know whose footage that is, but like they both give a great performance in that scene, especially her. And like, so she ends really strong before the kiss, prior to the kiss. But like the conversation of like, now we can't be together, and I get it, but I'm selfish when it comes to you. I don't want to share you with the world, but I know I have to, and it's killing me. Like, she's really good in that scene. And so, like, and again, maybe that's why I forget that there's a whole chunk of the movie where she's just kind of standing around, because that last scene between the two of them, I think, is great.
Yes, it is.
And then that is the super kiss that makes her forget everything, which is like, what? Like, such a, deus ex machina. But allegedly, there is comic book precedent for it.
Yep, there is, yep. I'll have to try and find the panels and send you them if you've seen them on something.
Yeah. So it's not a regular thing, but I guess there was comic book precedent. So there's a little bit of, like, you can sort of back it up a little bit. I still think it's awfully convenient. So Steven, while you do that, could you also please find me the comic book precedent for the cellophane S so I can like that part again?
Okay. There's
Thank
that Family Guy mixtape, Carly. That's what I always think of now. I think of Family Guy. They riffed on it.
But here's the thing, like, in the Donner cut, he just turns the world backwards again, which I'm like, that's not better than a super kiss. Like,
yeah, I think I'd rather have the super kiss than that.
Neither of them had a great solution to this problem.
Yeah, the flying the world backwards thing is the only thing that keeps me from giving the first Superman movie a higher rating, honestly.
Yeah,
I mean,
same.
The thing I don't get is, right, Jor-El, or in this case his mother, is like, you can't be Superman and be with Lois, but they're not around anymore, so he can do what he wants. So why don't you just be with Lois?
That is true. I mean, that's the real solution, is like, hey, this is going to be tough, but somehow we'll try to make it work. That's the real solution. But for whatever reason, like, they sort of set this rule of, like, nope, you can only have one or the other.
Which I think always wonder, because Donner intended to make more originally, and it seemed like the plot was always the same, that they didn't end up together at the end. But what was his, like, long-term plan? Because you can't not have them ever get together, can you?
Right. I know. It's so weird that, like, I guess maybe it was just the mindset back then of, like, no, Lois Lane can't know who Superman is, because that's part of the fun.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, how long did I don't know when the reveal came in the comics.
I want to say it was the 90s.
More recent than
not, Yeah, I want to say it was the 90s once they finally just gave up on that.
The stories that she found out were like one-offs before that.
So you're talking about 50 plus years of this going on the page before it ever even got to the point where it would happen in a movie. I mean, I don't know why everybody made that decision. I don't know why that was such a hard and fast rule that they needed to stick to, but I'm glad that comics and movies and TV and everything else have kind of let that notion slide. So Mary Jane can know Peter's Spider-Man. Lois can know that, Clark is Superman. These things.
Bruce tells every girl he lays.
I mean, if they rebooted Superman again, would you want them to bring it back, the whole Lois don't know thing, or would you rather they just had it so they're already a couple or something?
I mean, if you're going to reboot it again, I don't care if it's there, but don't make that a hanging point for 3 or 4 movies. I mean, that's it's not necessary. I love that about Man of Steel, that Lois figured it out right away. I'm not saying that wasn't the right choice there. I'm just saying, it's these movies are different than the Zack Snyder movies, whatnot. I really like the choice to have Lois figure it out right away, because now you don't have to worry about the additional dangling plot thread of her not knowing and him having to keep the identity secret from her and all that other stuff. I just don't think it's necessary in today's day and age.
I like the way they did it in Smallville, because she figured it out, and then she didn't tell him that she knew, and then when he were ready to tell her, she kind of accepted it. I thought that was quite a good, clever way of doing it as well.
See, now you brought up Smallville's Lois, and Andy and I are going to have to take a moment.
I'll be in my bunk.
You bring up Terry Hatch's Lois, and I'll be in there with you.
Gentlemen, can we just all agree that there have been some really quality Lois Lanes over the years?
There has,
Kate Bosworth being the glaring exception.
She's the only one I don't like. So.
Yeah, yep. Rarely has there been such an egregious miscast than that. It's crazy.
She was poorly written as well in her defense, but she had no chemistry with Ralph whatsoever.
It's nothing about it worked.
No.
I do think that there is fun to be had with the dynamic of Lois's best friend is Clark. Clark is in love with Lois. Lois is in love with Superman. That's fun, and there is fun to be had in playing with that. So I think that if they were to reboot again, start from scratch, I do think that you start there. But you let Lois figure it out, and then she becomes a willing participant, you know? Don't backtrack and make her forget again or whatever, but like there's fun in the revelation, but then just commit to that. Because I do feel like, you know, like I have no problem with the way Man of Steel played out, but at the same time, like, oh, you missed sort of the fun of her getting to know Clark and then being infatuated with Superman, because they're one and the same from the very beginning in that movie.
Yeah.
So that's the way I would do it, is essentially you start with one and then you transition into the other.
I was just going to say, in the Donner cut, it destroys the fortress. Like, completely burns it with heat vision.
Really?
And there's more, there's more Superman and Lois interaction as well.
Huh. I remember so little about the Donner cut. Like, I don't remember that either, but why would he destroy the fortress? That doesn't even make sense.
I guess maybe it's not.
He's hiding the bodies. That's why.
Yeah, there you go.
Also, Lex knows where it is.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, there is that, but I always thought it maybe as well is like he's got no use to him anymore because he's...
You know what he could do? He could just, you know, give Lex a big old pash, and Lex would forget where it is anyway.
Kill him. I mean, he's already 3 bodies deep, and plus,
oh my god,
he's certainly going to take the blame. Why wouldn't he just kill Lex?
I love the version that Brendan just posed, is that now we know the super kiss works. Superman goes and he kisses all of his worst enemies so they forget everything they know about him. I want to see him kiss Otis, okay? And Otis will squeal like a pig. Yeah.
I can't believe somebody hasn't at least written a comic satire involving that. I would throw $10 at that easily.
If he kisses you for longer, do you forget more? Or do you just...
Yeah. Is it like a Men in Black neuralizer? Is like each second is a certain amount of time?
Have you guys seen the...
This is why Superman had to depower himself before they slept together, because if he hadn't, who knows what kind of ramifications that would have caused.
Yeah. Lois would have waken up thinking she was 2 years old.
Your memory. What does the other thing do? You know, if you go straight from first base to a home run, that could really be devastating for Lois.
That brings us back to the Bill Cosby photo on the wall, too.
Oh, God. He'd love to have that power, wouldn't he? Have you guys seen that like, Mick take ending someone made online? And it's, he flies off with Lois and she's like, I'll never tell anyone. And then they edit in the scene where he drops her in Superman the movie. And then he just flies off smiling at the end. I always think that's his solution to all his problems right there. Just drop her and let her go.
I mean, at this point, you're 4 bodies deep plus Lex. Now, why not? This is the problem with murder. It's like Lay's potato chips. You can't have just one.
Oh, well, on that note, let's start wrapping this baby up, okay? Why don't we give some overall closing thoughts about Superman 2 and what the hell? We'll give letter grades because, you know, we usually do. So, Steven, kick us off.
Okay, no pressure then. So, yeah, like I said before, I still think it's what you do for a sequel. You up the ante with the action and tighter pace and all that sort of thing, because you don't have to worry about the origin. I think it still holds up. I think I've joked about some stuff, but it doesn't bother me as much as I think it might bother some of you guys, some of the stuff, because I just love Superman, because I can watch Superman 3 and 4 and enjoy the hell out of those movies as well. So yeah, it's just a big part of my childhood, so I don't think I could ever dislike any of these films, including the Supergirl movie, because even though that's terrible, I still love it. But yeah, I think I'd probably give it like an A-, which I don't know if that's going to be higher than everyone else, but that's where I'm standing on it. I still think it's the way you do a sequel.
Yeah, all right. Did you give it a letter grade?
Oh, A-.
Nice. Jamie, what about you?
I still find way more to like about this than I don't. And as silly as it may sound, the great stuff is really great. The average stuff is really average. The bad stuff is really bad. But it's still enjoyable. It's still a fun watch. Most of it holds up. Yes, there's some stuff you could critique all day long about it. There's really head-scratching moments. But the good outweighing the bad, I don't think any of it takes away from my overall enjoyment of the film. If I'm grading it on a nostalgic base, it's an A movie because I love this movie so much as a kid. If I'm grading it on today's more critical eye, I'm still going to score it between a B and a B plus. I still think it's a really good movie. I think it's probably just shy of being a truly great movie because of some choices that were made, either because of the director switch or because somebody had a complete misunderstanding of what could or should happen. But I still think it works. I still think most of it works.
Yeah, I definitely understand where you guys are coming from with your thoughts and letter grades and stuff. It's hard because it's not a movie that I have, like I said at the start, any real nostalgia for. I can't remember the first time I saw it, but I don't love it, which is a shame. For me, the silly stuff and all the added powers and everything, it just doesn't sit right with me, which I don't know. I just have a really hard time seeing past all that stuff. I mean, yeah, there is some really good stuff in there, but for me, the random and negative stuff kind of outweighs the good for me. That's just how I see it. So
you're just mad because you're bound to Lex Luthor every day.
I'm Neil to Lex Luthor. No, it's okay. I'd probably give it a B minus. Yeah, it's not my favorite Superman movie. It's not even my favorite Chris Reeve movie, but I understand why people like it. It's just not something I'd sort of reach for all the time.
All right. I mean, I feel I'm more with Steven and Jamie on this one. I love it. And yeah, I love it because I've loved it for most of my life. And with a more critical eye now, yeah, I can be honest and go, yeah, that's ridiculous. That's silly. That doesn't quite work. This is too much. Whatever, like for certain elements. But I still think it's better than maybe its reputation is these days. Because as you get older and we learn about all the drama behind the scenes and you start paying attention to that when you watch the movie, it all affects the reputation of the movie. And so I feel like this one at the time was really well regarded. And then as the years have gone by, it's sort of gotten less beloved, because then for years, people wanted to see the Donner cut, and then we have the Donner cut. And when we said earlier, like, now the Donner cut is considered the preferred version, and I think that has, caused a lot of fans to almost dismiss the theatrical cut, but I still really like the theatrical cut. There's still so much more to like than there isn't. All of the actors are great in this, all of them. Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder and Terrence Stamp and Sarah Douglas and Gene Hackman, they're all so great to watch. And even with some of the goofy story choices or the extra powers and stuff like that, the actors are so good that it still manages to work regardless. And I also think that, like, some of that goofy stuff, not all of it, but some of it almost adds to the charm of the movie in a weird way. Like, the cellophane-ness, it's goofy. It doesn't make sense, but I kind of appreciate it because it's goofy and it doesn't make sense. Like, I'm like...
Nobody took superhero movies seriously 40 years ago, so
yeah,
keep that in mind, too.
Yeah, and so, like, at that time, they were like, oh, who cares if it's never been done before? It'll look kind of cool, so let's do it. Like, I don't know. There's something freeing about that back then before everybody was a superhero expert. So... I love it. I can watch it anytime, and it does make me feel good, and I still find it incredibly entertaining. I love it. And the big showdown in Metropolis, I still think is a top-tier superhero movie sequence. I love it. So, I agree with Jamie, as I feel like subjectively, with my affection for it, I would still give it an A because I'd watch it any day of the week. But if I'm trying to be more objective, it's probably more of a B because, a couple of those moments or choices pull it back a little bit. But it's still incredibly entertaining and I love watching it. I still think that Superman the movie and Superman 2 are a hell of a double feature. I love them both. So, Superman 2... we can make fun, we can laugh, we can have a good time with it, but it's still really fun to watch, and we all really enjoyed it. And Brendan...
And you know what? We should get on the docket sooner than later a discussion of Superman 3, because the very first thing you see when the credits roll on this movie is coming soon, Superman 3.
That's true.
Yeah, great point. And I mentioned it at the beginning, but it is funny, like John Williams didn't return for this, and it's another one of those, like, it depends on what story you believe. There's some stories that say that he just didn't get along with Richard Lester and he didn't want to do it because of that. Other stories says that he was too busy with Empire Strikes Back and Indiana Jones, and so he passed it off. Who knows? I've never heard him say it. But what's funny is that, so Ken Thorne is the composer on record, but like, I'd say 80% of the music is just reworked music from the first movie. So you almost you can't even really tell that John Williams didn't return.
No.
Yeah, he did do some original themes in 3, didn't he? What's he called? Who did this again? Just forgot his name already.
Ken Thorne?
Ken Thorne. Yeah, he did some original themes in 3, but really in this it's pretty much just a copy and paste of.
Yeah,
John
which
Williams,
is fine because I'm sorry, John Williams' Superman score is one of the best superhero scores of all time,
Legendary.
and frankly,
It's one of the best movie scores.
One of the best movie scores of all time.
It's my favorite.
It's amazing. Like
I still to this day, when I hear that main theme anywhere, whether I'm watching one of the Superman movies or watching an episode of Seinfeld where it shows up, which it does frequently, anytime I hear it, it's just like, I just feel like a small adrenaline surge because of it. I love it. It's great.
I used the Superman theme at my wedding. That's the song that the wedding party ended to. It changed for Jess and I to the Bond theme, but for all the bridesmaids and groomsmen and stuff, it was the Superman theme.
But on your wedding night, did you go into the deep powering chamber before you handled your conjugation?
I had to, but the problem was I kissed Jess after it, and she totally forgot. So.
Oh my God, that's the worst.
Oh,
we had a pianist at our wedding, and he.
You had a what?
He did a pianist.
Okay.
And he played the Superman theme for us as we were after we'd just got married. So
That's
as
nice.
we were walking out to we had a Superman theme wedding, so.
Of course you
the
did.
cake
The
and everything.
geekiest thing I had at my wedding was we had a Han and Leia action figure for our cake topper.
Oh, that's cool. No, it's not like you think though. It want Mega Superman. In fact, I was actually more against it than my wife was. My wife wanted to do it for me, basically. So I didn't say no. I was like, cool.
I say go for it. I'm all for it, and I agree with you guys. The Superman score is iconic and wonderful, and it's funny because we talked about sort of the clip show recap at the beginning of the movie, and it's long. I don't know how long, but it's long.
Probably
but I don't,
a good 6 or 7 minutes anyway.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I don't care because it's the Superman theme music and I will listen to it all day. It's like an overture before the movie. I love it.
Yeah.
Word.
Well, there you go. 40-ish years of Superman 2. What fun to look back. We were all over the place, but hopefully it was fun for you because I had a good time. But we do have to wrap this baby up. Strangely, because we just did an episode a couple days ago, we don't have that much in the Wayne Manor mailbox, so I'm just going to save that for next time. And again, that way I can release this episode whenever I feel like it, because it's not time sensitive, so we'll see. But we are going to wrap it up. So, Steven, thanks for being a somewhat last-minute addition to the team here, but I knew it was about Superman, so I knew you probably wouldn't be able to say no.
I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Always great to have you on. And tell our friends where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at SteveBob1984. And I have a Superman podcast. It's called Krypton's Legacy, a Superman podcast. You can find that on iTunes and wherever else you get your podcasts.
Wonderful. That's great. Brendan, always a pleasure.
Yeah, never a chore. I just realised too, weirdly, even though I've been talking for over 2 hours, that not one of us is in the same country.
Yeah.
It's crazy that we're able to pull this together.
This is such an international podcast, and you're right. We are all over the damn world. And I got a new gray hair this week trying to schedule, but we made it happen. And I just realized, so Brendan, at the beginning of the episode, I made you Zod. Do you really want to know why I made you Zod? Because I always kneel before Zod.
Aww.
Oh.
Christ, that's on that note.
Some line about circus seals from Clerks is going through my head now.
Anyway, tell everyone where to find you. They already know, but say it anyway, just for good measure.
In front of you, evidently. No, You can find me on Twitter at Lowy007, on my podcast, The Nightlight, at NightlightPod, thenightlight.podbean.com, and facebook.com/thenightlight.
Great. And Jamie, thanks for getting up nice and early. We always appreciate it.
Hey, you know, the half a gallon of coffee I've drank in the last couple of hours has really helped.
Excellent. Send me the bill.
Cool.
Tell everyone where they can find you.
Twitter, BatRaider3960. Not terribly active right now because I'm just tired of people being assholes to each other, mostly. So, yeah, I'll be around eventually.
Right. And you can often hear his voice here or on Please Rewind or, a bit of a resurgence with the Real Fans show. So, you're still around.
Hey, aren't we doing that in like 12 hours?
If all goes as planned. But anyway, there you go. I already told you guys where to find me, and thank you as always for joining us and for downloading the show. We appreciate it. Please do subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss a new episode, and please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. And most importantly, as Michael Keaton's Batman says, I want you to tell all your friends about me. Visit holybatcast.com and find Holy BatCast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. If you've got a message for the Wayne Manor mailbox, even though we didn't do it this time, we will do it next time. So you can send those questions to holybatcast@rf4rm.com. So until next time, on behalf of Steven, Brendan, Jamie, and myself, Andy, this has been Holy BatCast. We'll see you next time. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Holy BatCast is brought to you by Real Fans for Real Movies. Remember, the thoughts and opinions shared by the participants are theirs and theirs alone, and do not represent the companies or organizations they happen to work for.
General? Would you care to step outside?
Superman!
Superman, thank God. I mean, get him!
Come to me, son of Jor-El! Kneel before Zod!
I learned the hard way that the mute button on my mic doesn't work.
I don't
What
even
show
wanna know.
was that in?
It was actually between recordings, but like I was like, okay, like take 5, and I hit mute, and then I went to the bathroom, and I came back, and they're like, "Oh, you okay?" And I'm like, "Yes." And it's like you could hear that, and they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, well, damn it, never mind."
It's the exact same thing that happened to Bill. Rooney and I were in the middle of talking, and all of a sudden we just heard this fluid pouring into other fluid, and Rooney's like, "What is that?" I was like, "I don't know." He's like, "Is somebody running water?" And Milks goes, "You guys can hear that? I'm taking a piss."
At least they're only having a wee, though, not somewhere.
That's true. This is true.
All I could think of to myself is Andy has this dark side that just not very many people know about, and I could just imagine him like hitting his mute button and saying, "These motherfuckers are driving me nuts tonight," and they heard all.
Fortunately, it has never quite been that, which is good. So Jamie, though, with all this coffee in your system, just imagine that Niagara Falls scene in the movie. Just imagine you're Clark and Lois, and you're looking at Niagara Falls, and just think about it.
And you're Jewish.
Yeah.
That kid falling in the water really slowly.
What a nice man.
Andy's right. You guys are a bunch of cunts.
What's the movie you're covering on Real Fans?
We are going to